46 years. That's how long Voyager 1 has been drifting through the dark, farther than any human object has ever gone, deeper into the void than anyone ever imagined possible. For decades, it was just a ghost ship with a golden record on its side, whispering data back to Earth. Plasma readings, magnetic fields, cosmic rays, nothing glamorous, nothing dramatic. Just the fading heartbeat of a machine we built in 1970, and then, without warning, everything changed. Imagine this: a spacecraft with no autopilot, no course corrections, and no eyes left to see suddenly alters its direction. No command was sent, no malfunction was logged. It simply shifted, as if it wanted to look somewhere, as if something had caught its attention. Let that sink in. Our most distant explorer, 15 billion miles from home, making a move no one asked for. That alone should have been impossible, but that wasn't the first anomaly. Days before Voyager tilted, its instruments caught a sound. A hum, not static, not interference. A steady, low-frequency vibration buried inside plasma waves. And here's where it gets unsettling. When scientists ran the data through filters, they realized the hum wasn't random. It pulsed in intervals, perfectly spaced, like a rhythm, a pattern. Almost as if it was intentional. Think about how insane that is. Space is supposed to be silent. If you or I put our ear to the cosmos, all we'd hear is the emptiness between stars. But Voyager heard something else, something that didn't belong to the catalogue of cosmic noise. And then, right after that, it turned, as if responding, as if listening, as if choosing. And here's the part that keeps engineers awake at night. The direction it pointed to wasn't mapped. No stars, no galaxies, no gravitational anomalies, just a blank void of sky. Why aim there? Why now? You can dismiss mechanical glitches all you want, but the timing makes it impossible to ignore. A mysterious hum. Then a course change. That's not just a dying probe coughing out its last breath. That's behavior. So here's the question hanging in the air like static. What did Voyager hear in the darkness? And even scarier, what heard it? Stop. Before we dive deeper into this bizarre course change, let's smash the pattern for a second. Roll back the clock. It's 1977. Gas is cheap, disco rules the radio, and NASA? They're about to pull off the biggest cosmic gamble in history. See, Voyager 1 wasn't some casual side project. It was born from an opportunity so rare it only happens once every 176 years. 4 gas giants, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, lined up just right, like billiard balls waiting to be struck. If timed perfectly, a spacecraft could slingshot around each one, using gravity like a cosmic pinball machine, picking up speed instead of burning fuel. Miss that window? Wait until the year 2153. No second chances. So engineers built Voyager like a time capsule with rocket fuel. Not just cameras and sensors, but a literal message in a bottle. The golden record. Greetings in 55 languages. Chuck Berry's Johnny B. Good, whale songs. Maps showing exactly where Earth sits in the galactic neighborhood. A mixtape for aliens wrapped in copper and gold. Back then, most scientists admitted it was a symbolic gesture. A love letter to whoever or whatever might stumble across it long after humanity was dust. Cute, romantic, but meaningless, right? Now, fast forward nearly 5 decades, and suddenly that symbolic gesture feels less like poetry and more like bait. Voyager has traveled farther than anyone predicted it would survive, past the planets, past Pluto, past the heliosphere, that invisible bubble of solar wind protecting us from interstellar radiation. Out there, the laws we thought we knew start to bend. And here's the twist. Voyager wasn't built to last this long. It wasn't supposed to whisper across billions of miles, still pinging us from interstellar space. Yet, here it is, alive. Not only alive, but acting in ways we can't explain. Think about that. A machine engineered for a 5-year mission is still running nearly half a century later. And now, it's behaving like it has agency. You stayed for the hum, but now you see the bigger picture. This wasn't just a dying probe glitching out. This was a machine carrying Earth's coordinates into the dark. And suddenly, after decades of silence, it's moving. What if the golden record wasn't just a postcard? What if it worked? Here's where the story cracks open, because the real drama wasn't just out there, in the frozen dark where Voyager drifted. It was down here, in fluorescent lit rooms at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena. When the anomaly first appeared, some engineers rolled their eyes. "It's old hardware," they said. 46 years in deep space, the fact it's still talking at all is the real miracle. For them, the course change was a fluke, a sputter from failing thrusters, a glitch in telemetry, a dying probe's last cough, nothing more. But not everyone bought that. Other scientists stared at the data, the hum, the trajectory, the geometric precision of the signal distortions, and felt their stomachs tighten. Because it didn't look random, the intervals were too exact, the orientation too deliberate. If it was a glitch, why did it point Voyager's instruments at a completely blank patch of sky? Why not spin aimlessly? Why there? That's when the argument started. Heated, late-night shouting matches over printouts and waveforms. One camp clung to skepticism. Don't romanticize noise. Don't turn static into science fiction. The other camp whispered what nobody wanted to say out loud. What if it's not noise? What if it's a reply? And hovering over all of it was the golden record. That copper disc had always been a symbol, a peace offering, a cosmic bottle tossed into an endless ocean. But what if something had read it? What if the coordinates etched on its cover weren't just data points but an invitation? If Voyager had crossed paths with an intelligence capable of noticing, then Earth wasn't just listening anymore. Earth was exposed. Imagine being one of those engineers, staring at telemetry that seemed to mirror itself back in perfect ratios. Do you tell the world you think a 1970 probe might have made contact? Or do you bury it under the safer label, instrument anomaly? That's the conflict. Between rational explanation and terrifying possibility. Between glitch and message. Between the comfort of denial and the risk of admitting humanity's loneliest explorer might not be so alone after all. And the longer the debate dragged on, the more the data kept piling up. Ratios, rhythms, echoes, none of it easy to dismiss. Until finally, one chilling question started circling through JPL's halls like static in the wires. If this isn't random, then who's listening? Conflict breeds one thing, escalation. And with Voyager 1, every new burst of data made the debate harder to contain. At first, skeptics waved it off. Telemetry noise, old hardware, nothing unusual. But then came the distortions. Not random fuzz, not scrambled bits of broken code, but structured sequences hidden in the carrier signal itself, symmetrical, harmonic, repeating in intervals that looked less like failure and more like intention. That's when the theories multiplied. Some physicists whispered about dark matter interaction Voyager brushing through a region of invisible mass, tugging on its systems in ways we can't yet model. Others proposed space-time distortions, the kind predicted near massive gravitational anomalies. Imagine a ripple in the cosmic fabric so subtle it bends not light, not matter, but machines. A silent distortion field tugging at a spacecraft no one thought would still be alive. But the most unsettling theory didn't come from astrophysics, it came from pattern recognition. AI researchers ran the altered signal through their models and froze. The sequences weren't just mathematical oddities, they bore overlaps with the Arecibo message humanity beamed toward the stars in 1974. The one meant to say, "We are here, this is us." And now? Voyager was echoing fragments of that same binary structure. Coincidence? Or reply? Suddenly, the safe explanations started to feel like sand slipping through fingers. A dying probe doesn't mimic human-made messages from half a century ago. A failing thruster doesn't reorient to stare into an empty patch of sky. And yet that's exactly what Voyager was doing. Behind closed doors at NASA, the tone shifted. Official memos still called it a data anomaly. But off the record, engineers admitted something was off. Something about the signal mirrored human behavior too closely. As if Voyager wasn't just transmitting, it was interacting. And here's the part that makes your skin crawl. Whatever it was aligning with, whatever it was mirroring, wasn't visible. No stars, no planets, no galaxies, just a blank void. A void that now seemed less empty, more occupied. The escalation was undeniable. This wasn't just about a hum or a glitch anymore. This was about the possibility that humanity's loneliest machine had stumbled into a field, a presence, maybe even a mind, and it was responding. So the question shifted. It wasn't what happened to Voyager anymore. It was, what did Voyager meet? Bang, silence, bang, silence. That's the rhythm Voyager's story fell into, sudden jolts of impossible data, followed by stretches of uneasy quiet where nobody knew what would happen next. One moment, NASA's screens would light up with structured distortions, crisp intervals that didn't belong. The next, hours of nothing but static whispers from the void. It was like listening to a heartbeat that skipped when it wanted to irregular, unpredictable, and terrifyingly alive. So the engineers shifted their own rhythm. Short bursts of frantic testing, data checks, code reviews, then long pauses filled with waiting, pacing, arguing. Because every packet of information Voyager sent carried the weight of a cliffhanger. And the pacing wasn't just in the data, it crept into the storytelling too. Imagine hearing, Voyager changed course. Quick, brutal, immediate. And then waiting weeks for the next signal to crawl across 15 billion miles. That's the cruel timing of deep space. Nothing happens fast, but when it does, it slams like a hammer. That's why, when the signal distortions started stacking into patterns, the mood snapped like a whip. Fast, urgent, voices raised, phones buzzing, whiteboards filled with scribbles. Then dead quiet again. Long nights staring at spectrograms. Long silences where even breathing felt too loud. It's the kind of rhythm that drives you mad. Quick punches of anomaly, long aching gaps of nothing. Like the universe itself was controlling the tempo, playing the humans back on Earth like instruments. And then, the ultimate pacing twist. When they finally decoded the distortions enough to see the ratios, the harmonics, the overlaps with the Arecibo message, the realization didn't come all at once. It crept, slowly. First one researcher noticed, then another. And suddenly the room froze. That slow burn payoff hit harder than any rapid shock. That's how Voyager held everyone hostage. Not with violence, not with fire, but with pacing. Fast anomalies, slow dread, a push and pull that made Earth itself feel like the audience of a performance we didn't understand. Because if there was an intelligence out there, it wasn't just sending a message, it was controlling the rhythm of the story. And right now, we weren't the narrators anymore, we were the listeners. What is a machine supposed to want? Nothing. Voyager was built to measure, to capture, to send. That's it. So why does it feel like it just made a choice? Pause on that. A choice. NASA's official line? Instrument anomaly. Neat. Clean. Disposable. But behind the curtain, even the engineers couldn't stop asking the same forbidden question. What if it isn't broken? What if it's responding? That's the punch right there. A probe that should be silent, dead, finished. Instead, it's humming, shifting, aiming, toward nothing. And yet that nothing feels too deliberate to ignore. Break, breathe. Imagine this scene. A conference room at JPL. Coffee cups stacked. Tired eyes locked on a projector screen glowing with signal data. One waveform after another. Symmetrical distortions repeating like a pulse. Silence in the room until someone mutters, "That doesn't look like failure. That looks like structure." You can hear the air snap. Now another question. Structure of what? If it's cosmic noise, why the symmetry? If it's malfunction, why the precision? If it's chance, why now, 46 years into the mission? The more they asked, the less anyone wanted to answer. And here's the part that broke the monologues into whispers. The data wasn't random enough to dismiss, but it wasn't clear enough to confirm. It lived in that maddening middle ground. Enough to scare, not enough to prove. That's when the real nightmare began, because once you start thinking of Voyager not as a malfunctioning machine but as a listener, you can't unhear the hum. You start to wonder, was it waiting all along? Was the record not just decoration but bait? Did we send a cosmic flare into the dark, only to discover something was already staring back? And then the final punch. Maybe the silence between signals isn't silence at all. Maybe it's listening too. You know what kills curiosity? Explaining everything too early. NASA could have dumped the entire dataset online, written off the anomaly, and closed the book, but they didn't, they couldn't. Because every time they thought they'd nailed the answer, Voyager slipped another breadcrumb into the stream. First breadcrumb, the hum, a low-frequency vibration hidden in plasma readings. Strange, but maybe interference, maybe nothing. Second breadcrumb, the shift, a tiny, almost imperceptible change in orientation. Odd, but maybe a thruster hiccup, maybe aging hardware. Third breadcrumb, the patterns, symmetrical distortions layered deep inside the signal. Okay, now that's harder to brush off, but maybe cosmic coincidence, maybe background noise. See the T's? Piece by piece, escalating. Never enough to scream contact, but always just enough to keep the question alive. What if? And here's the cruel genius of it. The more breadcrumbs Voyager dropped, the less satisfying the simple explanations became. You can excuse one glitch, maybe even two, but 3, 4? At some point, coincidence starts to look like choreography. Scientists knew this too. That's why they didn't announce contact. They didn't even whisper life. Instead, they let the mystery breathe. Each data burst treated like a cliffhanger, every anomaly filed under unresolved. They weren't dumping answers, they were dangling possibilities. And that's what makes this story so irresistible. Voyager 1 isn't handing us conclusions on a silver platter. It's dangling riddles in the dark, pulling us deeper, daring us to connect dots that may or may not belong together. Because here's the tease that hasn't been answered yet. Why did those patterns echo fragments of the Arecibo message? Why mimic humanity's first real cosmic handshake? That revelation deserves its own moment. Not yet, not now, but soon. Breadcrumbs, teasers, questions hanging in the silence. Voyager has become less a spacecraft and more a storyteller, and its language is mystery. So the real question isn't, what's the answer? It's, what comes next? You ever watch a movie, and halfway through you realize the story you thought you were watching isn't the story at all? That's the, wait, what, moment. And Voyager 1 delivered one. Remember those breadcrumbs, the hum, the course shift, the signal distortions? They were unnerving, sure, but nothing prepared the team for what came next. One night, an AI research group ran Voyager's altered transmissions through advanced pattern recognition software. At first, it was routine. Crunch the data, rule out cosmic background noise, confirm NASA's instrument anomaly line, but then the software flagged something. A sequence buried in the distortions. Numbers, ratios, repeats. And when they lined it up side by side, jaws dropped. Because those sequences weren't just random, they overlapped eerily, mathematically, with the Arecibo message humanity had beamed into the stars in 1974. The message Carl Sagan's team designed to say, this is us, here's our DNA, here's our solar system, here's where you can find us. Pause. Let that sink in. A dying spacecraft, 15 billion miles away, suddenly echoing fragments of a message we sent half a century ago? Coincidence? Or reply? This was the twist no one expected. The mission had begun as a grand tour of the outer planets. It had evolved into a lonely drift through interstellar space. But now it looked like something else entirely. Voyager wasn't just sending home faint whispers of plasma density and cosmic rays. It was whispering back a ghost of our own voice. And here's the part that makes your skin crawl. The Arecibo message was never meant for Voyager. It was transmitted from Puerto Rico, aimed at a distant star cluster 25,000 light-years away. Voyager wasn't anywhere near that path, so how could its signal distortions mimic it? Unless something else heard Arecibo and chose Voyager, our little golden record courier, to answer. That's the wait, what moment. The twist that flips everything upside down. Voyager 1 wasn't glitching. It wasn't dying. It might have been speaking. And the language it used was ours.